program.
What you talking about?
The program. The program. Get with the program.
Everybody clap to this. Say what?
Get with the program.
It starts now.
Hello and welcome to Get With The Program Radio Show. I'm your host, Gary Jones. Now, Get With The Program Radio Show is a multicultural, informative, relevant, entertaining, one-hour weekly show offering you a combination of diverse interviews with questions and comments. And as always, we will act as a positive source of information. Now, listen, if you want to be a guest on the show, all you have to do is log into www.getwiththeprogram.biz. Shoot me an email, leave me a message. You never know, you may have a conversation that we would love to talk about. Or give me a call at 919-665-1118. Again, the number is 919-665-1118. Today, we're going to be joining the conversation with Dr. Aal Anubia. He's a business consultant. He has been a supporter for energy, higher education, healthcare, and telecommunications. Today, our topic is economic literacy. Such a big, broad conversation. Dr. K, welcome to the show.
It's good. It's an honor to be here, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, post-COVID or almost post-COVID, 2021.
Always a pleasure to have you, Doc. You know, we travel many roads together, and it's always wonderful to see you, always.
Yes, sir. The honor is mine.
The honor is mine, too. Sharing the light. The light is always a very important piece of our life, as we say.
Absolutely.
All right. Doc, when we talk about economic literacy, let's get right into this. Now, economic literacy, you know, we're talking about having and understanding the economy.
Right.
And we're talking about which involves money, wealth, profit, business, land, all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
But now we put the word literacy on it, we're talking about the lack of knowledge.
That's right. Awareness.
Awareness.
Absolutely.
So tell me your take on that when it comes to the African-American community.
Well, Mr. Jones, the reason why this is so very important, a lot of times in our community, we talk about financial literacy, and the financial literacy component, although important, it only represents about 25% of a 100% equation. And what I mean by that was we'd have to go back and look at the definition of economics itself. And so economic 101 is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And the challenge that we have post-COVID or during COVID or in the communities facing gentrification, or as Miss Beyonce would say, the Queen Bee would say, let me upgrade you, is that in a scenario where we're going through the silver tsunami, which is the largest transference of wealth in the history of the United States, from the baby boomers to Generation X, and then from Generation X to the millennials, it's very important that we understand that we have to have a comprehensive land plan for the assets that we own. We have to have a comprehensive labor or workforce development plan in terms of retiring individuals, whether you're retiring after a 40-year career or you're retiring out of the military and looking for a second job, or you're looking for re-entry, coming back into the workforce. And then we have to look at capital. And the word capital is often confused with the word finance, but capital and finance can sometimes be used interchangeably. And then entrepreneurship or vision, And so what I've often said, and we've said on the show before, is that without a vision for the land, then the labor and the capital is useless. So when we talk about economic development or economic literacy, what we're doing is we're advocating for a community to understand those types of things, such as zoning, that impact their land and what they can do with it. Those things such as workforce development in terms of retiring population and bringing new students, or people changing jobs. When we talk about economic literacy on the finance side, on the capital side, we're talking about structured finance in terms of tax credits, renewable energy tax credits, low income tax credits, USDA tax credits, opportunity zones, those type of bonds, structured funding, those types of areas where those conversations, we're not often at those tables. And then lastly, entrepreneurship in terms of having a vision for the things that we see every day when we walk through our community. We witness inefficiencies, whether it's in a building or whether it's in lack of jobs or whatever the deficits are in our community. And so the challenge is that wherever you see a problem, that's an opportunity to create a business, because after all, we are in the business of promoting solutions instead of just, I understand that some parts of our community have to focus on the problems, but what we really need in terms of economic literacy, Mr. Jones, is more people to focus more time on the solutions. And I think as we focus more time on solutions, then the problems will take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about lack of knowledge, is the knowledge available for all cultures? Is the knowledge there? Or you had mentioned that so often that we're not at the table. Dr. K, why are we not at the table?
Well, the reason why we're not at the table, Mr. Jones, is because we need to learn how to control our narrative. The old people used to say, speak those things into existence even as though they were. And many of us go to our centers of worship and we say words such that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen, and faith without works is dead. But to speak a word of faith and to actually move on that word of faith is two separate things. So again, for me, I think it's basically a 3-step equation in terms of knowledge and awareness. The first solution would be community engagement, like we're doing now, using radio, using mass communication to raise the level of awareness, such that people can go on Google, they can go to the library, and they can start doing their own homework and doing their due diligence. The second thing is we need to do college empowerment. I mean, we need to look here at Shaw University, at St. Augustine's, at North Carolina Central, at North Carolina A&T, at Winston-Salem State, at Johnson C. Smith, and a host of other colleges who may not have the resources of an NC State, a UNC, or a Duke. And we, as a greater community, need to approach our college presidents and CEOs like Dr. Dillard and others and say, what can we do as a community to support your organization and help you become stronger, because you're preparing the next generation in the workforce. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, Mr. Jones, commerce, commerce engagement in terms of commerce relationship development. Right here within a mile or two of your offices, we have Citrix, we have Red Hat, we have Duke Energy. We have a number of multi-billion-dollar organizations, but those multi-billion-dollar organizations, if they don't have a foothold or a relationship with the communities, that would buy their products. In this case, college students that one day may use Red Hat, one day may use Citrix. In other cases, people who are right here in our communities who may be members of the Prince Hall family, may be members of the Divine Nine, may be members of any constituency of the community where they're in a decision-making capacity with a budget. And they say, well, why would I choose Citrix over VMware? Well, maybe one of the reasons why you would go with Citrix over VMware, considering they do just about the same thing, is because Citrix is right here in your neighborhood and they represent well. Mm-hmm. And so, and looking at the things that we need to do for our community in terms of awareness, I think we can sum it up by saying, and we have with the buy back, fix up, rebuild the block strategy, we have a 7-step strategy for economic solutions. And so beginning with, community engagement, college empowerment, and then commerce relationship development. And I think if we do those 3 things, then we're going to put ourselves in a position to create an environment for success.
So how important is it for the community to work together? I mean, I hear different entities that you mentioned in the conversation here. Is there a divide somewhere? What's going on here?
There was an old Indian proverb, and it had 2 wolves. And, one wolf was black, one wolf was white. And I don't necessarily buy into the whole yin-yang initiative. But the question that the old ancient Indian father asked, he said, here's 2 wolves. Which one is the stronger? And the answer to that is it depends on the one you feed the most. And so with greatest amount of respect to you, my MO is the solution. And so, yes, we can acknowledge that there are divides in our communities. However, I think the greater problem is, or the greater challenge is that we spend more time talking about the challenges or the problems that divide us versus talking about the solutions that can unite us and bring us together. So I and many others advocate intergenerational relationship development. And the main time that we in our community see generations working together on the same page or the same sheet of music is oftentimes when we're at a sporting event. And when we're on a sporting event, we witness the players on the field as one age, the coaches on the sideline as another age, the owners in the skybox who underwrite the game, usually another age, and then the fans in the stadium, either too old to play, too young to play, or just like to watch and support. And so regardless of, how old we are or what our echelon is, if we come to the table with one mission, and that mission is to win the game, then I think we'll all be successful. But lastly, Mr. Jones, I think those of us that are in positions like you and me, our visions need to be a whole lot larger. Because when we have small visions, the sign that you have a small vision is that people around you become territorial. And because my vision is so small, there's not enough of my vision to go around where we can share. So enlarge your vision. Like that was the prayer of Jabez. Mm-hmm. It says, Lord, enlarge my territory so that I shall not cause any pain.
Absolutely.
So, we got the prayer of Jabez action going here today on your show.
Wonderful. Dr. Aal Anubia, spitting that knowledge, loving it, my brother, loving it. Now listen, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, Dr. K, I'm going to ask the question, can you explain to me the economic development environment post-COVID-19? Listen, don't touch that dial. You listen to Get With The Program Radio Show. I'm your host, Gary Jones, and we'll be right back after this. Hello and welcome back to Get With The Program Radio Show. Again, I'm your host, Gary Jones. Now today we're joining the conversation with Dr. Aal Anubia. Dr. Aal Anubia has been a supporter for energy, higher education, healthcare, telecommunication, and much, much more. Dr. K, I've been knowing this guy for a while. He's doing wonderful things and a brilliant guy. Dr. K, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, Mr. Jones.
Wonderful. Today our conversation is economic literacy. Now, Dr. K, before we took the break, I mentioned to you a couple of things. We talked about a lot of information before we took the first break, but the question is, can you explain to me the economic development environment post-COVID-19?
Well, Mr. Jones, I really appreciate you for asking that question. And for many in the United States and in the world, COVID-19 represented an economic reset. Just being consistent in the community, it's changed both on the individual level and on a faith-based level. It's changed how we interact with each other in our centers of worship, in our homes, even as we go to hospital care in situations where the hospital or the doctor's office is only admitting the patient, but in some cases it's not admitting the patient's support people going around them. So COVID-19 has impacted us in the community, both on the individual and a corporate level in terms of our freedom of movement. But it also has impacted our colleges. And what COVID-19 has taught many of our colleges, particularly our HBCUs, is that we have to increase our telecommunications bandwidth in supporting things such as distance learning and distance education. It impacted a lot of colleges because colleges generate the most amount of their revenue from student enrollment. So we've seen student enrollments go down in some cases. Mm-hmm. And then we've also seen the dormitory space. So the dorms are not being used by the students if student enrollment goes down. And if the college has a mortgage, then that's going to be an impact because that deficit has to be made up. And then also sporting events. A lot of time colleges depend on sporting events to help support their revenues in terms of not only what they sell in terms of the tickets, but the concessions they make from the concession stands and the intellectual properties they make from licensing vendors to sell products with their name on it. And then lastly, in terms of a commerce scenario, in terms of how we do business, a lot of businesses were either put out of business or in our case, a lot of our businesses, their financials were not organized such that they could take advantage of the PPE, the payroll protection plan or the PPP. And so what COVID-19 allowed us to realize during this reset is that first we have to know the market that we're in, and we have to build redundancy and resiliency to have a backup plan in case things go south. Secondly, we have to have an operations plan to make sure, like the market, that we have redundancy. So in case, this thing goes down, we got second and third thing. It's kind of like have a sports team with a bench. From a financial perspective, what it has taught us that, now we're seeing more business owners who may have been doing exceedingly well as they downsize their staffs, coming in and working in the day-to-day operations of their business and realizing some of the things that were not being done as right, that they're having to right the ship, being a business owner and working in your business day-to-day. And then lastly, from a human resources perspective, what COVID has shown us is that there's so many people right now, in some cases, where they're earning more money on unemployment and not working than they were working. So in some cases, the desire to go back to work
has been challenging.
Has been challenging.
Right. Now, has COVID, we know people died from it. Know we had a lot of things going on with it. But from the economic standpoint, the business views, has it been a big positive movement for society?
I am a Star Trek fan, and I like sci-fi, and I like, very imaginary movies, like Harry Potter and stuff like that. And so if I had to go out on a whim, what I would say is COVID is an economic reset. And the economic reset that COVID has presented here in the United States, particularly here in North Carolina, in Raleigh, North Carolina, is it has required people to think outside of the box and to come out of their comfort level. And if we're going to be strong, individually and as a nation, then the nation depends on the creativity of its people. And so what COVID has taught us is how that we have to think different. Because the normal things that we were accustomed to, COVID served change on us, up close and personal. So it is changing, how we do business. I'm happy to see that after reading a CBRE report, commercial business, real estate executives, something like that, that there is a movement to bring people back into office space, because I think we've seen a loss of productivity here in the United States with so many people working at home. And I think when the energy that you get being in the same space with your team, in terms of the energy and the creativity, is a lot different than when you're working in a false medium and a Zoom call and so on and so forth. And quite frankly, and I know you agree with me on this, Mr. Jones, I'm zoomed out.
Zoom is, I can say that in some instances as well. I always like in person, but it works for some folks. Now,
right.
with COVID being here now, what do you see the future of the economy? How fast you think it's going to come back based on your vision, and what does it mean for the African American community as for us as getting back in the swing of this thing?
Well, I'd like to salute two administrations. First of all, I'd like to salute the Biden administration and their commitment to build back better. And also like to salute President Biden for acknowledging some of the ideas of his predecessor and President Trump in terms of the opportunity zones and the opportunities that created, and his commitment to do a better job in terms of providing cash flow to our small businesses, to our HBCUs. So, having said that, we, in our plan with the Buy Back, Fix Up, Rebuild the Block, we've created a 7-step design build model. And that 7-step design build model, once applied in the community as an example, requires us to organize our stakeholders and create what's called a PMO, a project management office, and then focus on grassroots organizing and community advocacy, and then also focus on culture. I didn't want to look at the word culture. So I went on a thesaurus and I tried to find a synonym for the word education. And what I realized that according to thesaurus.com, that the number one synonym for the word education was the word culture. And it reminds me of my grandmother when I was little. She said, son, don't hang with some of those boys. They ain't got no culture.
The thing about my grandmother said the same. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Doc, before we go on, we're going to take a break.
Okay, then.
We're going to take a break for the calls. And look, when we come back, I want to ask you, what are the things one needs to formulate an economic development plan?
Yes,
because now that we have taken the backlash of the COVID, now we got to be moving forward to redevelop new plans. Absolutely. Listen, once again, we joined the conversation with Dr. Aal Anubia, and Dr. K has been a supporter for energy, higher education, healthcare, telecommunications, and our topic today is economic literacy. Listen, don't touch the dial. We're going to be right back, but right now I want to reach out to my good friend Steve Rao. Steve Rao, what's going on in your world?
Well, Gary, the word of the day in America is infrastructure. President Biden, in addition to the American Jobs Act, has proposed a $2 trillion investment in infrastructure, roads, bridges, broadband, investment in clean energy and the new jobs of the future. Many individuals and economists are likening this to President Roosevelt's New Deal. During the New Deal in the 1950s and 60s, America spent 3% of GDP on science and innovation and research. Today, we're only spending 2%. But during the New Deal, there are similarities. During that time, we created 1,000 new airports. President Biden is proposing $100 million investment in broadband. During the 1950s and 60s, we had the Rural Electrification Act, which provided electricity to rural areas of the United States. And President Biden, under this plan, is proposing 500,000 electric charging vehicle stations. The challenge, Gary, is that the cost of infrastructure is rising, but the most important problem to understand is the speed of infrastructure development has slowed tremendously. Countries like China, who are now projected to become the next superpower by the year 2040, are building bridges, roads, and airports faster than we can imagine. Infrastructure is critical, Gary, for the jobs of the future and for the competitiveness of the United States. I hope the president is successful in passing this bill and making a much-needed investment in our infrastructure in our great nation.
So now I'm going to reach out to Kathy Greggs. Kathy Greggs, Fairville Pack. Kathy, what's going on? What's going on in the news? Tell me what you seeing happening.
Well, Gary, in North Carolina, we got another issue with legislative. They are trying to tell us our right to vote does not matter. Voting suppression is a huge issue, Gary. Redistricting of our maps, making it to where we may lose some seats or we may add some. But once again, the gentrification as well as gerrymandering still exists in North Carolina, Gary. That is what's going on. We must fight this. We must stop the systemic racism in North Carolina and let them know we're not going back to Jim Crow's.
Gentrification and gerrymandering, this has been going on for a long time. Are you telling me they get ready to bring this back? This is still going to happen again?
Yes. And the thing about this whole situation is they have hired a professor to decide how our map should look and never ask the people that live in the areas to say what they want and how they want it to look. And the thing is, I urge the people to go out and vote for the right people that need to be in office that's going to defend you and say this is what the people want and not what the government want.
What professor? That's the question.
Well, there's different ones. So, 3 years ago, they had one that did all the maps and moved everybody over and gentrified majority of the area, especially here, even in Raleigh. But, at the end of the day, they're having people that they think is professionals to understand and tell the people what they want in their cities. And that's not possible. We have to talk for the people. The people voice should never die.
Wonderful. Kathy Greggs, thank you for that information. Listen, once again, you listen to Get With The Program Radio Show. I'm your host, Gary Jones. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this. Hello and welcome back to Get With The Program Radio Show again. I'm your host, Gary Jones. Today we're joining a conversation with Dr. Aal Anubia, who has been a supporter for energy, higher education, healthcare, and telecommunications. And today our topic is economic literacy. Dr. K, welcome back to the show.
Pretty good. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones.
All right, Dr. K, before we took the break, I wanted to ask you, the question that popped up was, Dr. K, we know that the economy has took a dip. We know that since COVID has come about, it has taken people out of jobs and businesses have shut down and closed. Things are back in the rebuilding stage now, but it's gonna need a plan.
Yes, sir.
Without a plan, like you used to tell me, Dr. K, you can have the vision, you can have the money, but if you don't have a plan,
yes, sir,
you may not be successful. It's a strong possibility. That plan is important, right?
Yes, sir.
So with that being said, what are the things one needs to formulate an economic development plan?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Mr. Jones. We've created a 7-step design build model. Now, one of the things that you need to create an excellent plan is, how are you going to get somewhere you've never been before if you don't know where you're going? Because if you don't know where you're going, a map won't help you and a GPS won't help you. So the first thing we have to do, Mr. Jones, is determine the outcomes that we want. We have to pick a destination. We have to decide, this is the type of things that we want to create, and this is what we want to manifest. So that requires us to take an inventory of our future today. The other thing, Mr. Jones, is I don't see any of our community as dogs. But if I could borrow a paraphrase, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But the reality is post-COVID-19, if old dogs want to survive, they're going to have to learn some new tricks. Because some of the things that we did yesterday are not going to be applicable in today's time frame. So in order for us to make adjustments and taking advantage of the opportunities post-COVID, we first have to spend more energy on creating and looking for the opportunities and less energy on worrying about the problems. So that requires a willingness to learn and a willingness to execute, both on the individual level and on the team level. The other thing is, we have to identify funding sources, identify those resources that's needed to help underwrite our visions. And our 7-step design build process, just to put it in a nutshell, is to set up the PMO, is to do community organizing and advocacy, is to promote culture in terms of certification, education, and training. That's on the design side. And on the build side, we want to be able to take an inventory of our market assets in our marketplace. We need to promote capacity development in current operations and proposed operations. We need to look at our finances, and instead of taking a solo approach to underwriting, such as just taking out a loan or just using our savings, we need to use a structured financing approach to how we prove our business models and move into sustainability. And then lastly, and most importantly, our human resources, our human capital. There are a lot of people that COVID, may have broken some people's spirits, broken some people's wills, so that we have to create the environment. And I think I shared with you on a previous show that there was a HBCU economic revitalization plan, where historically Black colleges and universities were were encouraged to serve as bridges between the community on the left and industry on the right. And so when we triangulate that, we call it our 3C strategy, where we take community engagement, college empowerment, and commerce relationship development, and then we work together as a team to secure opportunities. And as we move forward, that's what really inspires me to do this work, Mr. Jones. Oftentimes, as you know, as an entrepreneur, it reminds me of being a farmer. Before you can have a farmer and you might want to do corn. But the reality is that before you can plant some corn, you're going to have to acquire the land, whether you rent it or whether you buy it. And you don't get paid to acquire the land. You don't get paid to till the soil. You don't get paid to sow the seed. You don't get paid to reap the harvest. And you don't get paid until you actually take your vision to the market and somebody sees the value in it and they decide to buy it. But then you can't eat it up all at one time. So when the next season comes, you have to save a third, eat a third.
That's part of the plan.
Reinvest a third. And yes, sir, that's part of the plan.
Now, when it comes to your economic development plan, and of course the post-COVID-19, I want to ask you, Dr. K, is change good? Because some people don't take change very well. Some people have resistance to change with technology. Some people are set in their ways. Like even with the COVID vaccine, many people didn't get that because they're looking at past history. So people are set in their own ways, but it's change good.
Well, change is excellent. And, my grandmother used to say to me, the man who don't like to change, tell him to not take a bath for a month.
The man that don't like to change.
The man or woman who doesn't like to change, tell him not to take a bath for a month and see how he or she smells at the end of that month.
That's going to be rough.
Every time we take a shower, Mr. Jones, we change. We shed our old skin. In the process of shedding the old skin, then our body is changing. We are releasing that which was old, in the skin we had last year, because the skin that we're living in this year, Mr. Jones, believe it or not, it's a different skin than the skin we had the last time we were on the conversation. So change is excellent. I think the best way to manage change is to manage it by a position of being proactive instead of reactive. Let me give you an example. I had the honor of serving the former Colonel Commander Holden of the North Carolina Highway Patrol. Excellent gentleman, God rest his soul. And another project, I had the honor with General Honoree at the Old North State Medical Society of North Carolina. A group of physicians went to Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina. And this is what we realized. People knew the hurricanes systematically came in. But in our community, whether it's in Princeville or Rocky Mount or down at the coast, we know hurricanes come, Mr. Jones, and we didn't prepare for them. Okay? So the change says, if you know a hurricane season is coming in your community and your heating and air conditioning unit, for example, is sitting on the ground, then maybe you need to A, get a generator, and B, get a heating and air conditioning unit and do like they do at the beach and raise those units, 3 to 6 feet off the ground. So if the weather, comes through, you'll be in a greater position to sustain. And one of the things they learned at Hurricane Katrina was that no matter how many African-American physicians that we had, if the community took a page from the physicians community, or if the physicians advised the community to have a generator, then those people who had high blood pressure, sugar diabetes, and the like, if they had a system to where they could refrigerate their medicine, then when the big thing came through, we would have been better prepared to deal with that change. So to answer your question, Mr. Jones, I embrace change. The thing that I would advise our community to do is, we know that change is inevitable. We should focus more on being proactive and be prescriptive. And you don't have to be premeditative if you know sometime during this year it's going to rain. And so if I'm tired of going outside and getting wet, what should I do, Mr. Jones?
You got to be prepared for it and cover up.
That's right. We got to get an umbrella.
Let me take a break right here, Dr. K. What we're going to take a break right here. Once again, we're joining the conversation with Dr. K. Aal Anubia, who's been a supporter for energy, higher education, healthcare, and telecommunications. Our topic today is economic literacy. Dr. K, when we come back, I want to touch more on what do clients need to have to go through the 7-step process.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, what we're going to do right now, we're going to take the break. We're going to reach out to Ursula Camille and Bertrell Williams. Listen, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this. Now, Ursula Camille, what you got going on in your world?
Good day, Gary. Here's a highlight in Black history. George Franklin Grant was born on September 15, 1846 in Oswego, New York. He was a dentist and inventor of dental prosthetics and the wooden golf tee. In 1868, he attended Harvard School of Dental Medicine and graduated in 1870. In 1871, he became Harvard University's first African American faculty member when he took a position in the Department of Mechanical Dentistry. He was known internationally for treating patients with cleft palate, which is a congenital condition in which the bones and soft tissue in the roof of the mouth are not closed. This condition made it difficult to speak and eat. He invented a prosthetic device known as the oblate palate. This device could be worn by patients to help their palates move into proper physical alignment and allow them to speak and eat. In 1881, he was elected president of the Harvard Alumni Association. George Franklin Grant also invented an improvement in golf tees. On December 12, 1899, he received a patent for his invention of the wooden golf tee. George Franklin Grant died August 21, 1910. This concludes today's highlight in Black history.
Now I want to reach out to Bertrell Williams. Bertrell Williams is going to bring you some good spoken word right here. Listen, check this out. Bertrell Williams, what you got going on right now?
Hey, little brown girl. Hey, little brown girl. Did you know the day that you were born, God blessed this world with a special gift, a gift as rare as a unicorn? A girl more beautiful than any Disney princess. Because of you, God made the whole world shift. The earth had to make room for a little brown girl like you, with a smile as bright as any star. A brown girl who is brilliant, talented, and equipped with the ability to go so very far. Hey, little brown girl, you are filled with hopes and dreams. You can become anything. The next doctor, astronaut, scientist, or president. Child, you can become anything. Hey, little brown girl, when you look in the mirror, always love the image that you see. Tell yourself every day, I am strong, I am powerful, I am smart, and I am blessed just to be me. Don't let anyone dim your light or let them try to stop your shine. Never compromise who you are. Be confident. Remember, God made you, and never be afraid to use your brilliant mind. Hey, little brown girl, always love the skin that you're in. Love the body God gave you, and your uniqueness is what makes you great. When God created you, He made you just the way you are. He made you flawless and without a single mistake. So for all the little brown girls in the world, walk with your heads held high and always reach for the sky. Don't ever let anyone put a cap on your ceiling. Tell the world I'm phenomenal, so there's no way you can pass me by.
Once again, thank you so much, Bertrell Williams. That's the truth. Listen, keep your eye on the prize and can't nothing pass you by. Keep God first. Listen, you listen to Gary Jones and Get With The Program radio show. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this. Hello and welcome back to Get With The Program radio show. Again, I'm your host, Gary Jones. Now, today we're joining conversation with Dr. Aal Anubia, who has been a supporter for high energy, and energy, of course, higher education, healthcare, telecommunications. Our topic today is economic literacy. Hello, Dr. K, and welcome back to the show.
Hello, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones.
Wonderful. Now, Dr. K, you provide such great information, and you've been on my show several times. This is not your first rodeo here.
Yes, sir.
If somebody wants to get in contact with you and get some conversation, get some consulting,
yes, sir,
things of that nature, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, I really appreciate that. You can go to www.ncassoc1.com, www.ncassoc1.com. Also, you can look up our block initiative, which is www.buybackfixup.toomuchTVinc.com.
Wow. There's a lot of stuff going on there. You know what we're going to do?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if my listeners had a chance to write all that down, but I'm going to tell you, you'll be able to go to www.getwiththeprogram.biz. You'll find this information there.
Thank
Make
you,
sure I'm
sir.
going to take care of that for you right there.
I salute you, sir.
How about
Thank
that on
you.
the
Yes,
square,
sir.
right? That's what you
go.
call square business.
Square business. I love it. Absolutely.
Okay, Dr. K, welcome back. Like I said before, now we talked about a lot of things. We talked about the economic development post-COVID. We talked about the economic development plan. Now, what do clients need to have to go through the 7-step process?
Well, what they need, I call it the MVP's MVP, the most valuable players, mission, vision, and purpose. So the first thing they need coming through the door, Mr. Jones, is to know what their mission is. What is it that you wish to accomplish? The second thing, Mr. Jones, is what is your vision? How do you envision manifesting the things that you said you want? And then lastly, Mr. Jones, it's your purpose. What is your why? Because your why is that thing that's going to help you to continue to drive through when the money is short. It's going to help you to continue to drive through when the person that you were working with that you thought you can depend on doesn't show up on time. And so it's your why. My why is being raised with a father who's a military veteran and a mother who is very supportive, that took me on a civil rights campaign with Mr. Paul Gervais with the Carolinian newspaper. And I had the opportunity to attend one event, Dick Gregory, another event, Jesse Jackson, another event, Dr. Benjamin Chavis, and the likes. And I was fortunate enough to be around strong men and strong women like Angela Davis and others, where I can actually sit down and witness what real strength looked like in our community. And I think that in our community, for us to be successful, what we need to do is we need to go back and visit the old paths. One of my favorite passages in the Bible is Isaiah 58:12. And in Isaiah 58:12, what it challenges us to do is to go back and revisit the old paths and then kind of resurrect the greatness that we had. And so in our particular case, what we have to do is to realize that, we are a great people. Our greatness is before slavery. Not everybody that looks like you and I came to America as slaves.
That's correct.
And so the first thing we have to say is this is where we came from. This is where we are right now in terms of COVID-19 and a growing economy and global challenges by other entities. And then this is where we're going. And so most importantly, if we grab a page out of Dr. Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and my favorite habit, as I've communicated with you before, is to begin with the end in mind.
Wonderful.
And so what we do is we begin with the end in mind, and we do what Grandma used to tell us, Mr. Jones, speak those things into existence.
Oh, absolutely.
Even as though they were.
You got to claim it. Now, Doc, earlier in the conversation, I heard you say why. We're talking about the why, and why is a big word. We hear this a lot. Everybody always has a why. Why this, why that, why this. But I have a why. The why I want to ask you is, why don't we, as African Americans, why is it been such a struggle to buy from each other?
That's an excellent question. And this is the best answer I can give you. If we as men are to be criticized, constructively or otherwise, then let us be criticized based on a standard of excellence. An ounce of gold or a ton of gold is still gold. And the reason why is because somewhere down the line, we were told that the black man's ice is not cold. That's not true. But what we have to do, black men, white men, green men, yellow men, orange men, what other men and women that's on the planet, we have to ask ourselves, what is the standard of excellence? And then we have to incorporate that standard of excellence into everything we do. And then when we go before the community, they can tell that we have done our due diligence, and we will break through the stereotypes of us not offering good service, because sometimes we do cut corners. Sometimes we do take shortcuts, and sometimes we do it for various reasons. We do it because we feel like we don't have enough money. We don't have enough resources, but at some point, we have to believe in something greater than ourselves. And we have to have visions that's bigger than individuals. And when we begin to have visions that's greater than ourselves and that's greater than our individuals, for a community, and we adopt standards of excellence, then when we go to a group of people and they say, well, why did you do that? And I would say to them, the reason why I did that is because this is a best practice and this is a standard of excellence. Our standard, our goal is to help 2,000 companies reach $500,000 in sales. And as we reach to meet our goal in creating what I would call Superman's phone booth, then we can help 2,000 companies hit $500,000 sales. Then that would represent $1 billion in revenue. And so I will leave you with a goal, and on your show, is our goal is to become the first HBCU unicorn. And a unicorn is a $1 billion startup. And I was talking to an entity the other day that has helped 67% of the initial public offerings go public. And what they told me is they have worked with people to help them go from unemployed to working in their garage to cracking the bill on Wall Street because they had an excellent idea. And so our solution, Mr. Jones, is, don't focus on competition. To hell with competition. We need to focus on creation. And if we focus on creation and we focus on that song that says, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
Oh, how well do I know that too?
Yes, sir. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And once we make a commitment to allowing this little light of ours to shine, then I think doesn't matter who the audience is, black, white, green, rich, poor, doesn't matter. When they come into your presence, when they come into our presence, the one thing that we're going to leave them with is a signature of excellence. And if we come to the table with quality, the only thing they can say is, when I came to get with the program, he put me in a safe environment. It was nice. He was very professional, and he did an excellent job.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate that. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. You're
Now,
welcome.
we got about another couple of minutes here before we're going to wrap this up. Dr. K, you've been doing a lot of wonderful things in the community. I know you mentioned also earlier to me, you have a movement now, the block.
Yes, sir.
And you have a mission with that. But now I do want to ask you, with the work that you do,
Yes, sir.
you do a lot with economics. You do a lot with passing information on to the community. You do a lot with HBCUs, schools, many businesses. You have helped businesses raise money.
Yes,
You have
sir.
helped money grants. You have done lots of things with numbers that sometimes I wonder, with so many zeros behind it amazes me. And African-American brother at that, you know,
Yes,
so
sir.
that's big for me. Now, what inspires you to do this work, Dr. K?
You inspire me, Mr. Jones. And
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yep.
You know, I want for my brother what I want for myself, and I have a big. I'm not coming to asking God to fill up my cup. I'm asking him to fill up this pool, because within this pool is 1,000 cups, which represents 1,000 families. So what really inspires me is, a lot of times people say, how can you say you love God who you have never seen and hate your brother who you see every day? And oftentimes we have been taught that we can invest in things, real estate, technology, equipment, and the very thing that the dry bones that people are crying out for is to take a time out of your day on a Saturday to put aside your differences and say, brother, don't matter what the argument was that we had last week, last year, last month, last decade. You called me to accountability, and I'm gonna show up, because the success that we working on is the bigger than the argument that we talked about previously. And so for me, it's going back to a commitment that says, why did our parents and our foreparents sweat, bled, and die, literally, to give us an opportunity? I'm a military brat. Both of my grandfathers were in the service. And if these men and women in this country are willing to put their life on the line for us to have the standard of living that we have today, then it would behoove us, who don't have to come over the wall illegally, not to take advantage of the resources in, and arguably the greatest country on the planet, with respect to all the other countries. I'm not dissing no other countries.
Dr. K. Aal Anubia,
Yes, sir.
I tell you, my brother, it's been a wonderful time with you today, as always. And that's going to about wrap it up for us. You know what? You and I, we get in these conversations, we go.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
I'm going to have to cut a show out for you for about 3 hours, because
Straight no chaser.
I have got to pick your brain. Straight no chaser today.
no chaser.
Once again, today we're joining the conversation with Dr. K. Aal Anubia, who's a supporter of energy, higher education, healthcare, and telecommunications. Our topic today was economic literacy. Dr. K, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones.
All right, once again, you listen to Get With The Program Radio Show. I'm your host, Gary Jones. As I always say, stay positive, keep your head up, and remember to
Get with the program.
What you talking about?
The program. The program. Get with the program.
Everybody clap to this. Say what?
Get with the program.
It starts now.